good afternoon, good day, good evening sa lahat-lahat, no? This is your Lola Amalia once again, here in my YouTube channel, Just Me, Amalia. And today, April 7, April 8, 7 nga, 7, April 7, I am going to do a vlog about one of the most historical events, or significant events, no? One of the most significant events that happened to our country 80 years ago. And this is the fall of Bataan. We are going to commemorate the 80th anniversary of this particular event. Remember, I used the word commemorate. I did not use the word celebrate. Kasi may mga gumagamit ng salitang celebrate. We do not celebrate defeats because this was a downfall. And we should never celebrate a downfall, but we commemorate. So on April 9, 1942, Lieutenant Normando Ildefonso Reyes, or Norman Reyes, as he was popularly known, broadcasted over the radio station Voice of Freedom in Malintat Tunnel Corregidor, the surrender of the combined forces of the Filipinos and Americans. It was a moving message. It was a message, no? It was a moving message penned or crafted by Captain Salvador P. Lopez. It was a message that accepted defeat, a message of surrender, but nevertheless, it was also a message that expressed hope that victory would be attained, or will be, but victory would be attained by the Filipinos and the Americans, in not so distant future. So meron silang pag-asa na mananalo pa rin sila. It was also a way of paying homage to the valiant Filipinos and Americans who fought. They fought so hard, but as stated in the message, men are not made of impervious steel. Maaring the spirit is willing, but ang katawan ay hindi na talaga kakayanin. Sobra na yung hirap na dinaranas nila. And they know it was useless for them to continue fighting. The decision to surrender was made by Major General Edward King Jr. And when he made his decision was against, no, the order of General Douglas MacArthur. Because at that time, Douglas MacArthur was already in the United States together with President Quezon and other members of the cabinet or government of President Quezon. Before you think na bakit umalis si Quezon, yes, he had to leave unwilling. No, he had to leave unwillingly because the President of the United States of America, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, would not want him to stay in the Philippines because he would not want Quezon to be captured by the Japanese. So on that particular date, April 9, the joint forces of the American and Filipino soldiers, numbering 78,000, 66,000 Filipinos, and 12,000 Americans, surrendered to the Japanese. Before this surrender, the Battle of Bataan had been raging for 3 months already. It started January 7 and then ended on April 9, 1942. It was a very painful decision done by Major General King, and it was made more painful when he went to the headquarters of the Japanese. And he was given a not so nice welcome or treatment by the Japanese themselves. So he surrendered to General Masaharu Homa. And And it was definitely one decision na not tore his heart, but he could not do anything anymore. And wala na nga sina ano rito wala na nga sina MacArthur dito. And I would like to read to you the full text, no, the full message, so that you can feel the pain, the hurt that the Filipinos had at that time, perhaps, no, because of this particular decision to surrender Bataan. Let me just check kung nasaan yung file ko. Okay, here. Bataan has fallen. The Philippine-American troops on this war-ravaged and blood-stained peninsula have laid down their arms. With heads bloody but unbowed, they have yielded to the superior force and numbers of the enemy. The world will long remember the epic struggle that Filipino and American soldiers put up in the jungle fastness and along the rugged coast of Bataan. They have stood up uncomplaining under the constant and grueling fire of the enemy for more than 3 months. Besieged on land and blockaded by sea, cut off from all sources of help in the Philippines and in America, the intrepid fighters have done all that human endurance could bear. For what sustained them to all these months of incessant battle was a force that was more than merely physical. It was the force of an unconquerable faith, something in the heart and soul that physical hardship and adversity could not destroy. It was the thought of native land and all that it holds most dear, the thought of freedom and dignity and pride in this most priceless of all our human prerogatives. The adversary, in the pride of his power and triumph, will credit our troops with nothing less than the courage and fortitude that his own troops have shown in battle. Our men had fought a brave and bitterly contested struggle. All the world will testify to the most superhuman endurance with which they stood up until the last in the face of overwhelming odds. But the decision had to come. Men fighting under the banner of unshakable faith are made of something more than flesh, but they are not made of impervious steel. The flesh must yield at last. Endurance melts away, and the end of the battle must come. Bataan has fallen, but the spirit that made it stand, a beacon to all the liberty-loving peoples of the world, cannot fall. All of us know the story of Easter Sunday. It was the triumph of light over darkness, life over death. It was the vindication of a seemingly unreasonable fate. It was the glorious resurrection of a leader, only 3 days before defeated and executed like a common felon. Today, on the commemoration of that resurrection, we can humbly and without presumption declare our faith and hope in our own resurrection, our own inevitable victory. We too were betrayed by Judases. We were taken in the night by force of arms, and though we had done wrong to no man, our people were bound and delivered into the hands of our enemies. We have been with mock symbols of sovereignty, denied by weaklings, lost with repeated oppression, tortured, and starved. We have been given gall to drink, and we have shed our blood. To those who look upon us from afar, it must seem the Filipino people have descended into hell, into the valley of death. But we know that the patient and watching men who said their simple prayers in the hills of Bataan have not lost faith, and we know that the vast congregations in the churches throughout the land drew from the gospel as much renewed hope in their resurrection. To all of them today, we give the message of the angel on Easter morning. Be not afraid, for he is risen. We too shall rise. After we have paid the full price of our redemption, we shall return to show the scars of sacrifices that all might touch and believe. When the trumpet sound the hour, we shall roll aside the stone before the tomb, and the tyrant guard shall scatter in confusion. No wall of stone shall then be strong enough to contain us. No human force shall suffice to hold us in subjection. We shall rise in the name of freedom, and the east shall be alight with the glory of our liberation. End of message. The surrender of Bataan was followed, of course, by one of the worst atrocities in world history, and that was the Death March. The prisoners of war, 12,000 Americans and 66,000 Filipinos, were forced to march from Bataan to Tarlac, a distance of 85 miles. They have marched for six long days and were given only one meal of rice during the entire journey. No water was given to them. Along the way, whenever there were artesian wells, kasi maraming artesian wells sa may nadaanan nila. But if any prisoner would try to drink from that artesian well, he was shot. Binabaril siya. And those Filipinos along the roads, the bystanders, with all the pity on their faces, na nakatingin sa kanila, they would attempt to give them water, a little food. But if they were caught, they were also shot. Once they were caught, they were also shot to death. The Japanese also applied the sun treatment, a form of torture given to the prisoners of war. And what is this sun treatment? The Japanese made the prisoners set under the scorching sun. Kasi mahal na araw. Alam na natin, pag mahal na araw, mainit na mainit. For several hours. And to think na itong mga prisoners of war na ito ay hindi binibigyan ng tubig, mahihina kasi walang pagkain. Isa lang beses sila pinakain ng rice. So they were so weak and they were put under the heat, the scorching heat of the sun. Kung may mga prisoners who would show napakita ng paghihina, na hindi na makatuloy ng magmamarcha, sila ay binabayoneta. Nahirapan akong anuhin kasi recalling it ay talagang masakit. No, recalling what happened to our people at that time ay masakit talaga. And I remember how my mother hated the Japanese. Hanggang mamatay siya, galit siya sa mga Hapon because of the atrocities they committed against our people. Yes, they were bayoneted, they were shot. And they were those who were beheaded. How cruel, how inhuman. They were deprived of even the simplest of dignities. The dignity of allowing them to urinate, to defecate sa isang toilet. No, they were not allowed. So while they were walking, doon na lang sila umihi. Doon na lang sila dumudumi. How cruel, definitely. And then they reached San Fernando, Pampanga. When they reached San Fernando, Pampanga, they were herded into what you call boxcars. mga boxcars na tawag nila. And each boxcars were ay napaka-crowded, napakainit. And so, doon pa lang, marami ng prisoners ang mga namatay. And then again, from Capas, they were made to work another 8 miles. 54,000 prisoners of war. 54,000 ang natira doon sa 78,000 na lang. So, 54,000 na lang ang natira na nakaabot sa tinatawag nating Camp O'Donnell. Yung iba not accounted for anymore kasi maaring nakatakas na or sa hindi napansin ng mga Hapon ay nakatakbo sa mga kagubatan at sila ay sumama sa mga guerrilla. So during the march alone, dun sa 78,000 na sumuko, ay namatay na yung 7 hanggang 10,000 mga prisoners of war, both Filipinos and Americans. So nung bating na sila sa Camp O'Donnell, napakarami lalong namatay because they died of starvation, they died of illness. Approximately 26,000 Filipinos died and 1,500 Americans. Hindi talaga, napakahirap talaga ng kalagayan nila, how they suffered. Bakit ba sila tinutorture ng ganito? Bakit ba ganun kalupit ang mga Hapones? Because they believe these men who surrendered were not worthy of respect. Hindi sila dapat i-respetuhin kasi sumurrender sila. Ibig sabihin, hindi nila tinitingnan ng may dangal ang mga taong ito na nag-surrender. Meron silang tinatawag na yung the Bushido, no? Under the Bushido, the Japanese samurai, ay meron silang the Japanese samurai set of moral code or moral conduct, moral principles. At ito ay kapag itong ano na ito, ang isang Hapones ay ang isang tao ay dapat na maglumaban until death. Ang tingin nila sa mga prisoners of war, mga duwag, mga walang dangal kasi nga sumuko. Remember the Japanese, kapag matatalo sila, they committed suicide, no? Naghaharakiri sila. So lahat ng mag-surrender sa ganyan, nagsusurrender, hindi na lumalaban. Ang tingin ng mga Hapones, they considered the prisoners of war that they had mga contemptible and they were not worthy of respect. Hindi sila karapat-dapat sa paggalang, no? Kaya awa, kaya tinutorture sila. Kaya habang nagmamarcha hanggang nakarating ng ng kanilang kulungan, they continued their torture of the prisoners, of the Filipinos and American prisoners because the Japanese disgusted of their disgust of these people. Kasi nga, ang tingin nila nga ay mga walang kwentang tao kasi nagsisuko. Kaya sa April 9, sa Sunday, let us remember these soldiers, those who died, those who were able to live, and then saw the liberation of our country and eventually the independence of our country from the Americans. Let us continue to pay homage to them because and continue to remember them, honor their memories, no? Sapagkat they did their best para sa ating bansa. They surrendered, yes, but it doesn't mean na sila ay walang dangal. Lumaban sila, but lahat ng ika nga, there was this particular situation na talagang hindi na nila kakayanin. Kaya napilitan na silang sumuko. General King decided to make the supreme sacrifice of swallowing his pride for the sake of the soldiers na ayaw niya ng mga matay pa. Pero on the contrary, marami pa rin ang nangamatay sa kanila. Bakit nagpatuloy ang mga Hapones sa kanilang kalupitan. That was part of our history, a history that we should never, we should never take against the people, the soldiers who surrendered, but honor them and give them the corresponding recognition because they really fought hard. And if not for them, perhaps more could have died during the Japanese occupation of the Philippines during the Second World War. So that's my blog for today to commemorate the fall of Bataan, and at the same time talk about briefly about the Death March. Okay, thank you very much. Please do subscribe to my channel, and I will be providing you or giving you more informative blogs in the succeeding blogs that I'm going to prepare for you. That's my happiness. Yan lang happiness ko ngayon as I stay in my house and enjoy my retirement from the government. Bye-bye. Thank you very much. Tune in to my channel, Just Me Amalia. Bye-bye.